CBS, America's #1 independent television network, presents the following sports exclusive.
Hester trying to work it back to the middle. Gets past the first wave, and here he goes. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown.
Second down, they give it to Green. Green stutter step. He's through. First down, 40, 45, 50, 45, 40. Run, William, run. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown.
Welcome to Basically a Football Show.
Basically a Football Show. Championship week of college football, week 12 of the NFL schedule. So we'll start with college. We're going to get right into things here. In college, obviously conference championship games came and went. We have our playoff picture. We talked a little bit about it on basically a sports show, but just to round it up, number one team in the land, the Alabama Crimson Tide, 13-0, beat Florida in the SEC title game, 54-16. Florida scored first in that game.
And that was about it.
That was about it. Alabama just rolling along, doing what it does, and it's earned the number one spot. The only team to be in all three versions of the playoff so far.
Yeah, I guess that's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Wow. Well, they're Alabama. They'll probably be in it for the next 3 years after this.
Yeah, it really is just amazing how they can keep putting things together.
Real quick, while I'm thinking about it, they said that this was Alabama's third straight SEC championship. I'm trying to think who won it 4 years ago. Was it Auburn?
Auburn beat Missouri, yeah.
Okay, all right. I just couldn't remember. All right.
When Auburn played
Oregon.
State.
Oregon. Or no, was it Florida State?
Florida State, yeah.
Okay.
When they played Jameis in the title game, yeah.
Okay.
The Rose Bowl.
All right, okay.
And that first score that Florida scored, by the way, against Alabama, the first touchdown allowed by the Tide since October. Stupid how good that team is.
Yeah, good luck, Washington.
Yeah. As you said, the team they will be playing is the number 4 Washington Huskies. Pretty easy beatdown of Colorado in the Pac-12 title game, 41-10. Puts the Huskies into the playoff, and they get that matchup with Alabama. Obviously, a team unlike anything Washington's seen all season. It'll be an uphill battle for Chris Peterson and the Huskies on New Year's Eve,
to say the least. Yeah, it's going to be tough to beat Alabama, but we'll see. You never know.
Clemson did kind of what we expected them to do. Had too tight of a game against Virginia Tech in the ACC title game. They were up pretty big, let Tech back into it. But Clemson beats Virginia Tech 42-35 to clinch the number 2 spot in our playoff.
I think if Clemson plays like they did against Tech in the playoff, they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
You can't, because Tech doesn't have the offense to put up that many points, and that troubles me a little bit if I'm a Clemson fan.
No. Then the number 3 team in the country, Ohio State, they beat. Oh wait, they didn't play anybody last week. They were number 2 in the country going into the conference championship games. Obviously, all the talk going into it was what was going to happen with that Big Ten title game and who was going to win it. What would that do to Ohio State? What would that do to Penn State or Wisconsin or even Michigan? And Ohio State takes the number 3 spot. They fall down 1 spot. I think it's like a courtesy thing, just to say, hey, well, Clemson did win its title game, so we'll push them over Ohio State. Like it matters because they were going to play each other one way or another. But your Buckeyes managed to hold on and hang into the playoff race. As you say, back in a little bit, but I think they definitely earned it with the season they had.
I think that you got to look at it and say, are they the better team of the 3 or 4 Big Ten contenders? You could argue that maybe Michigan might be right there with Ohio State, but the Buckeyes have the head-to-head, and I don't think there's any arguing that Michigan and Ohio State are a good step above Penn State and Wisconsin. So we backed in. I don't like that. I haven't liked it all along. But like we've said numerous times on the show, too, I don't know how you take the Buckeyes out of it after you've had them in it this long, especially when they haven't done anything.
Right. The margin between Ohio State and Michigan was pretty thin. I mean, a double overtime game is still – that could have gone one way or the other in that game. And, yes, Penn State did beat Ohio State, but they also lost to Michigan big. Their other loss was to Pitt, who didn't actually hang on to its ranking spot like they had done to kind of give a little help to Clemson and Penn State.
They don't need them anymore.
Well, no, actually, Pitt was 23. That my mistake. So Pitt did technically they're a ranked team, but they didn't look so good outside of that. And we talked about all the factors that went into that Ohio State loss. I'm fine with it. Like obviously there's the biases against Penn State for many other reasons, but in terms of on the field product, Ohio State and Michigan both beat Wisconsin. Penn State lost to Michigan pretty well. So when you take all the conference results into totality, Ohio State being the number 3 team in the country over Penn State, over Michigan, over Wisconsin, I'm very okay with how that turned out.
Yeah, I don't like how the Buckeyes got in, but I can't really argue with the results. I suppose I will say this. Had the committee, and they should have done this a long time ago if they were going to do it, but had they bounced out Ohio State because of the lack of a conference championship, I don't think I would have been terribly upset, other than to say that you had them at number 2 for a very long time, and then over this weekend you decided to kick them out. But had they done it, I would have understood why. But again, I'm like you, I'm happy with this. I don't know that Penn State or Oklahoma and Michigan, anybody on down the line really has a case to say, yeah, we should be there over Ohio State or Clemson or even Washington for that matter. Yeah. So I'm happy with the way it turned out too.
Yep. Penn State did beat Wisconsin 38-31, and what was really a great game.
It really was a good game, yeah.
Outside of what happened to Penn State on the day after with the selection committee, they earned that Big Ten championship. All props to Penn State there. You win the division, by the circumstances that were presented to you. They won the division. They had a great game there in the Big Ten title game. And, all marks to them. They get to go to the Rose Bowl with a 38-31 win over Wisconsin.
Let me ask you this. Do you think if Wisconsin had won that game, was there a better chance of the committee moving them in front of Ohio State than just because it's Penn State? Or did that? No. I don't think it mattered, but I'm just wondering if anybody else did.
I don't think so, because Penn State actually beat Ohio State. Regardless of how it happened. Wisconsin didn't beat Ohio State or Michigan. True. And the Michigan one was close, and the Ohio State one was a little close as well, but they were still convincing wins over Wisconsin. So I think had Wisconsin won, it would make Ohio State a clearer playoff team, but with Penn State winning, it muddled things a little bit just because of the result. But I don't think so.
And I'll say this too, that with the playoff, really what we all wanted going into the thing before it started 3 years ago, for the best 4 teams to be in the playoff, and I think we got that. I know that the committee put a premium on conference championships. I want to say when it was convenient, but I don't necessarily think that was their thinking on it. It was just a matter of if a conference championship could come into play and be a determining factor, they were going to use it. But as we've seen here, when it comes down to it, they want the 4 best teams as well, regardless of anything else.
And at the end of the day, Ohio State's 11-1.
Yeah.
There's only the only 2 other teams in the country with 1 loss are in the playoff, Clemson and Washington.
Yeah.
The only team with 1 or less losses that is on the playoff is Western Michigan. And, but nobody's arguing for Western Michigan to be all the way up there. But Ohio State proved it. It just, their loss came at a bad time in terms of how the tiebreakers worked out.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't even be in that spot had Michigan not lost to Iowa for being dumb on the road in Iowa. So not entirely their fault. They had one of the best 4 seasons in the country, and I'm not sad about that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it either. As I've said, I'll say it one more time just to make sure that everybody hears me. I do not like getting in this way. I'll be the first to say it. But I also can't argue with the result of this playoff. I think we've got the 4 best teams. I look at the outside of the top 4, and I don't see anybody that I go, they probably should be in there over anybody, especially not Alabama. But I can't see a team that I would put in ahead of the 4 that are in. I really don't.
And if you had told Penn State players, fans, coaches, whatever, before the season, hey, you're going to play in the Rose Bowl this year, they'd be ecstatic.
Oh, yeah.
They'd be ecstatic that they get to play in the Rose Bowl after all all the stuff they've had to endure as a fan base or whatever. And, I'm not going to be Gus Johnson like and call it a healing moment or anything, but it's a good, for them, it's they should be happy enough.
From a pure football standpoint, yes, they should be very happy with where they ended up. And I will just pat myself on the back and say that all the way back, what would it be now, 15 weeks ago, I said Penn State's going to be better than people think they are. I didn't think they'd be this good, though. I knew they'd be better. I had no idea this was on the horizon. I had no clue.
So Penn State wins the Big Ten. They will go to the Rose Bowl. They will be playing in that Rose Bowl USC And because USC didn't win their division either, kind of like Ohio State, but because of the result of the Pac-12 title game, Colorado dropped 2 spots. USC moved up 2 spots to be higher ranked than Colorado. And with Washington going to the playoff, that means that the Rose Bowl is obligated, like they're in the rules, they are required to take the next highest ranked Pac-12 team. And after the way things shook out, USC is number 9, Colorado is 10. So they pick USC.
Did SC play Colorado this year?
SC did beat Colorado in the Coliseum this year.
Okay, then that's fair. I have no problem with that.
USC was 9-3. Colorado ended up 10-3.
USC's got the head-to-head on that one, so I'm okay with it. I was going to say, now, if Colorado, if they didn't play each other, or if Colorado had beaten SC, then this was some clear engineering going on to get the desired best possible Rose Bowl matchup. But the way things played out, I'm okay with this. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, but even with that put in there, it's clearly a little engineering on their part.
Sure.
Because, SC is going to sell the tickets. They're going to get the eyeballs for the rating.
But you know what? I think the Buffs would, too. I think the Buffs would. It's not like you're trying to put Rutgers in the Rose Bowl to get them to travel all the way west,
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
But you're right. It's engineering completely. But because of the records, I'm better with it than I would have been if it was just a straight up, we need USC over Colorado, so screw you, Colorado.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, too. So Penn State was 5. They'll play USC, who was 9. Michigan falls down a spot to 6, and they will be going to, I believe it's the Peach Bowl. Let me double check. They will, where'd it go? How can I not find it? Oh, they will be playing in the Orange Bowl. Michigan will be playing number 11 Florida State in the Orange Bowl on December 30th. They had to move that back to then because of the stupid have to play these things on New Year's Eve thing.
That should be a pretty good football game, I think.
Michigan, Florida State, I think so too. Yeah, that's a fun matchup. Number 7 is the Oklahoma Sooners. They beat Oklahoma State 38-20 to win the Big 12. They finish at number 7. They will play Auburn in the Sugar Bowl on January 2nd.
God, I don't find that matchup terribly appealing.
Me neither, but it's one of those. These are blue bloods of college football. Auburn.
Yeah.
You're going to get plenty of people.
Well, yeah, the Tigers are going to put people in the seats in the Sugar Bowl, and Oklahoma's going to travel pretty well, too. So, yeah, from a financial standpoint, it's a good matchup.
Yeah, and I guarantee you that this will be one of those bowl games that when we go into the preseason rankings next year, too much is going to be taken out of this football game one way.
Yep.
Wisconsin, with the loss to Penn State, falls down to 8. They will play in the Cotton Bowl against the undefeated MAC champion.
Oh, God.
Western Michigan Broncos.
I will say this for the Broncos. If they had to draw a big-time matchup like this, Wisconsin's probably the best they could do. Because Wisconsin is not to say that they're not better than Western Michigan. They certainly are. But if I had to look at the teams that Western Michigan was going to play in a big bowl, of that group, I'd say, okay, Wisconsin would probably be my pick because they're just not known as being terribly explosive on offense. And I just think they've got the best chance of pulling the major upset against Wisconsin. I wouldn't like their chances against SC or even Oklahoma for that matter. But Wisconsin, you never know. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but Wisconsin's a team that is probably the best matchup for them.
Yeah. We'll probably go over some of the other bowl games next week. Outside of the playoff games, there are 33 bowl games.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. I like all the bowl games because to a lot of these players, going to the New Mexico Bowl is as good as it's ever going to get for them. So I have no problem with that.
Last bit of college football is the Heisman Trophy finalists were announced.
And they said Lamar Jackson's just going to sit in all 5 chairs.
Yes, Lamar Jackson is one of the finalists, of course, the runaway favorite, probably the winner. Deshaun Watson, Clemson, is one of the finalists as well. Baker Mayfield, Oklahoma quarterback. D.D. Westbrook, Oklahoma wide receiver. 2 players from the same team make it as finalists. The defensive player, looking to be the first all defensive player to win, Jabril Peppers of Michigan.
Doesn't Peppers occasionally return a punt and a kick here and there too, though?
He did get some carries around the goal line as a Wildcat quarterback. He ran for 167 yards and 3 touchdowns at some point this year. Oh. And he returned a punt for a touchdown.
So he's not even, he's as close to a pure defensive player as you're probably going to get. This isn't like J.J. Watt being there.
No. Like we had said before. Lamar Jackson won this thing in week 2 or 3. And, he was just so far ahead. Yes, he's fallen back a little bit, but he's still ahead of the field by a good margin. And
he never really had a game, I thought, bad enough to knock him completely out of the Heisman consideration, or at least even out of the top spot for that matter.
Even if he had kind of a subpar game, there was nobody behind him that had
exactly
as good of a game to take it over 100%. But that's the layout for the college football bowl games and Heisman Trophy. Week 13, actually, in the NFL. I misspoke. It is week 13. Oh. We started on Thursday with two teams both getting a full week of rest off of Thursday night for once. It didn't look like it. This was kind of an ugly football game, reminiscent of most Thursdays. But the Cowboys pulled this one out over the Vikings 17-15. Cowboys are 11-1. Vikings, that was a tough one for them to lose, but they looked okay in this game. But still, Cowboys, 11 wins in a row, clinch a playoff spot with the results over the weekend. First team to clinch a playoff spot this year, the Dallas Cowboys.
I think the Cowboys in this game, this really legitimized them in my eyes, because this was a game that they could have easily not won and said, that's okay. It was a Thursday night, weird schedule, all sorts of crazy things. And they didn't. They won the game to go to 11-1. And to me, that's the sign of a championship caliber team, that they went out and got a game that no one, I think, in their right mind would have complained had they lost this game. You got a desperate Minnesota team playing a Cowboys team that is so far out in front, and they still won the game. So that just to me is like, wow, these guys really are this good.
Really good. And Sam Bradford even had a half-decent game, and Ezekiel Elliott was held to only 86 yards. But still, the Cowboys found that way to win, and that's the important thing. If you're the Cowboys, is finding that way to win.
Right.
They're not always going to win pretty, but they're finding ways to win, and that makes them such a dangerous team as we get into December now.
And I just real quick shout out to my fellow Ohio State alum Ezekiel Elliott for wearing the SPCA shoes in the game for the animal adoption and all that stuff. Very cool. I'd like to see more of it.
Yeah, this was that week where everyone gets to wear a customized shoe for a charity of their choice. So you saw a lot of that, which is a showing of good faith by the NFL for once.
And that was very nice to see finally the animal cause getting involved in it. I'd like to see more of it. But way to go, Zeke, and try to do a little bit better on other stuff, and you'd be even greater.
Move on to Sunday, and the Patriots continue their march. They're 10-2 with a 26-10 win over the Los Angeles Rams. Tom Brady becomes the all-time NFL career leader in victories with 201 in the game. The other bit of news, of course, is before the game, it was reported by everyone except the Rams, who have still yet to officially announce this, that Jeff Fisher and the GM Les Snead getting contract extensions. But most people think that this is just a way to add a little bit more money into a potential buyout at the end of the year when they get fired.
Oh, thank goodness.
So with the loss too, with the Rams getting their 8th loss, Jeff Fisher has now officially not had a winning season through the last 3 presidential inaugurations.
Wow. Wow. When you put it in that perspective.
That's what I saw on Twitter.
Well, you know what? He
hasn't had a winning season in over 12 years.
He was right on Hard Knocks. He said, we're not a 9-7 team, and nope, you're sure not.
No, they're pretty bad.
I hope you're right that extension is just a added leverage for a buyout, because I can't imagine them bringing him back after this. I mean, he's not.
No, if they do that, they've gained a lot of good faith just by being in the city this year and now putting in Jared Goff. If they keep him, they're going to lose a lot of good faith that they've already built up. People will turn on that team pretty quick.
Well, you know what else too? On Bass, we talk a lot about hockey coaches that have made a career out of one Stanley Cup. You got your Mike Keenans and who's the other one we always bring up? Tortorella, guys like that. Is there an NFL coach that's gotten more out of one Super Bowl appearance, which was a loss, by the way, than Jeff Fisher?
No. Once I looked at his numbers, because I hadn't thought about it, just he's one of those guys that's always around. But once you look at like how his career has gone, it is amazing that people still give him a job, and he's like the 4th highest paid coach in the league.
Yeah,
he's getting paid $7 million a year to suck.
I mean, he must just be a guy that really knows how to sell himself in a meeting or something, because if you look at the record, and I mean, 3 presidential inaugurations, that's 12 years, folks.
Yeah.
That is 12 NFL football seasons. And
it's not like he's a bad coach. The teams are never truly bad, but they're never good.
No.
And that's just you can't live like that.
That's what I'm saying. I can't remember a guy that has taken one Super Bowl appearance and ridden it further than he has.
Yeah,
and again, he's been basically a 500, 9-7, thereabouts coach. But in the National Football League, that's not enough to keep you around for this long. And it's just amazing to me that he's done this. But I really do. And look, a lot of people go, I hate to call for somebody to get fired. And then I always remember he's making like $1 zillion a year, so he'll be okay if he gets fired. So you know what? I hope they do get rid of him because the Rams need to go in a different direction. Simple as that.
100%. I do not disagree. We'll move on to some of the more important games, though, just because that was at the top of the list. The most entertaining ending by far.
Man.
Chiefs Falcons.
Wow.
What a great game this was, really back and forth. Two good teams just going at it. You get down to the end of it, the Falcons take a 1-point lead with like a minute and a half left. They have to decide to kick the extra point and be up by 2, or go for 2 to be up by 3, and at the best hope for a tie. If the Chiefs go down and kick the field. So they go for 2, throw it right to Eric Berry, who returns it all the way back 100 yards for the 2-point conversion and the lead, and the Chiefs hold on to win 29-28. Eric Berry with an interception, with a pick 6 in the game and a pick 2 for the game win at the end of it there. Just insane. I love this rule so much.
I do too. I think it's great, and it's so cool that we've seen this happen twice this year. But 2 things about this. First off, Eric Berry could have ran all the way to Macon, Georgia if he wanted to. There was no one around him. He was just that far gone. And the second thing is, now that we know this can happen, do you think that it's smart to go for 2 when you, like in a situation like the Falcons, when I get it when you have to and you've got no choice, but now knowing that this rule exists and knowing that this can happen to you, do you think it's a smart move to do? To go for 2 like they did? I get what they were doing. I understand it completely.
Oh, yeah.
But there was still plenty of time left. I don't know that obviously knowing what I know now, but knowing that anything like this can happen, I'm not so sure that I would have done it.
I think you have to still, because based on the numbers, like the book, as it's always said, the book says you have to go for 2 there because you want to be up by 3, and you don't want to risk losing by 1 the other way. But maybe you put some faith in your defense and just go up by 2. I'm not sure. Maybe just run a better play.
Yeah, I will say this: the new kicking rule, it really worked. It's made the extra points interesting because even the kicks now, you're going, okay, I've got to make sure they make this.
Well, here's the thing too. So let's say they just kick if the thing's an incomplete pass instead, they're still going to get beat by a field goal if they kick the extra point or if they don't complete the 2-point conversion. Not many times you're going to be able to run it all the way back for 2. And the 2 times it's happened was on an interception where the guy just jumped the route and was gone before anyone could realize it. And the other time was on a blocked extra point where you're already going the other direction. So I think you still go for it because if you're going to lose on field goal, you're going to lose one way or the other.
I mean, odds are you're not going to throw an interception that gets taken 100 yards the other direction. That's true. And this one last thing on it, is that the new worst gut punch way of losing a game that there is?
Pretty close.
If you take the lead and all of a sudden you're losing again in one play, to me that's the worst way to lose. I think.
Yeah, that's.
But you're right. I'm with you. I love this new rule. It's made the extra point interesting. All the time.
Chiefs are 9-3, leading the wild card still. Falcons are 7-5. That means that they're tied with the Buccaneers.
I know.
On the top of that division, all of a sudden.
Yeah.
They have the tiebreaker over the Buccaneers still, but things in the NFC South are not as comfy as they once were for Atlanta.
It looked for a little bit there like the Falcons were in cruise control, and now all of a sudden they're tied with the Bucs, who, like I said, we're always a year late on these things.
Yeah. Lions beat the Saints 28-13. Great game by the Lions. Matt Stafford looked great.
Yeah.
And, this is one where it could have been a shootout, could have been back and forth. But the Lions defense played really well, I thought, in this one, and kept the Lions 8-4 and on top of the NFC North by a full 2 games now with the loss by the Vikings.
I think this effectively puts the Packers and the Vikings, more or less puts them away at this point. Because I know that, don't the Lions have the tiebreaker on both those teams?
I believe so.
And they've also got a 2-game lead, so it's going to make it very tough for the Packers or the Vikings to catch them. But this game was a lot like,
lead with 4 to go.
Yeah, this one's a lot like the Cowboys game was. This is a game that the Lions could have gone in playing a Saints team. It's pretty tough at home, and I don't think anybody would have been terribly surprised or upset if they lost this game. But they went in and they won it in pretty convincing fashion. So I'm going to put the Lions, I think, in the good column at this point.
Yeah, I think the Lions are set. You know, they trying to pull up their schedule here just to see what they got down the rest of the way. But again, 2-game lead with 4 games to play. I'm sure some of them are division games. Here we go. So their schedule down the rest of the way is Bears. That's a win. At the Giants, at the Cowboys, and they finish off at home against the Packers.
I might have spoke too soon there.
Well, they have 2 hard ones there with the Giants and Cowboys on the road, but you get a win over the Bears, and you can clinch things off with the Packers at home. I think they're okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give the Lions the benefit of the doubt there and say that they're fine.
Yeah, and I have not seen anything out of Green Bay or Minnesota to make me think that they're going to suddenly put it together and get really good and catch these guys either.
Yeah, exactly. So the Lions go away, and a tough loss for the Saints because now you see where the Falcons are. If you had won, you'd still be a game behind a wild card and the division lead.
Yeah,
but Lions were the better team, and I think they're just in total they're a better team.
Yep.
In Jacksonville, the Broncos win 20-10. Paxton Lynch was the winner there for the Broncos, who have gone back to him in kind of a weird thing with the quarterback situation again. But the defense still good enough to get them a 20-10 win.
Well, what's the story with Simeon? Is he hurt or did they just sit him down?
I didn't see. I just saw in the highlight when I looked up, it was Paxton Lynch throwing the ball, and he had the stats, and I said, I don't know. I didn't see what was going on there, and I didn't get a chance to see any stories about it. But
it looks like Simeon was hurt because it says he'll be able to play against the Titans on this Sunday against the Titans this Sunday.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, so it looks like he might have been injured for that one.
Interesting stat I saw about the Jaguars because Blake Bortles threw a pick 6 in this one. Blake Bortles has more pick 6s in his career than wins. Sorry.
Do you think he's a good quarterback on a bad team, or is he just a bad quarterback?
I think he's a mediocre quarterback on a terrible team.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really kind of rooted for him. He's from Central Florida, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really rooted for him because I like to see the small town or small school guys do well, but I'm beginning to think that he's Charlie Fry. He's not Ben Roethlisberger. He's not Byron Leftwich. He's Charlie Fry.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd take that. But the Jaguars fall to 2-10. I think I read where they were officially eliminated from the playoff race this week with that loss. They were hanging on. And they were hanging on because this AFC South is garbage. The Texans fall to 6-6 to create a 3-way tie on top of the division with a loss at the Packers, 21-13. Goodness gracious. I mean, nice for the Packers to get to 500, but bad for the Texans to fall to 500.
And I tell you something too. This it was an okay game, but neither one of these teams they're not good. Either one of them. I think if you put the Texans in any other division, they're not 6-6 at this point. And the Packers are just 2 mediocre teams that are going nowhere. The Texans are still in the playoff hunt because they're in a bad division. The Packers are just a bad team.
100%. Into a game of also Rams, the Bengals knock off the Eagles 32-14. Eagles took a pretty hard fall after a good start at the beginning of the year. And the Bengals, we've covered that story plenty of times. Just
not a lot to say.
You thought better for the Eagles, but 1-6 on the road, that'll kill you.
They started out 4-1 maybe or something like that, or
they were 3-1, I believe.
Okay, well, yeah.
Beat the Steelers early in the season.
I thought, they beat the Steelers. I mean, it wasn't like a 2-point win. I mean, they beat them bad, 35-6 or something like that.
Yeah, it's the weird one.
Yeah, okay.
To really what was one of the biggest games of the day in terms of playoff implications of the AFC, Ravens beat the Dolphins 38-6. They snapped the Dolphins' 6-game winning streak. And the Ravens, a team that I just keep wanting to bury because I never thought that they're that great, they put together a pretty good win here, 38 points, to move to 7-5 and keep on top of that AFC North ever so slowly. They're putting it together and looking kind of like a playoff team.
Here's my question. We've talked a lot about this with the Giants in the NFC. Are the Ravens, God help us, quietly putting together one of those things where you wake up one Sunday and go, oh, my God, they're in the Super Bowl?
I don't know if I can go that far with them. I mean, we we did talk about on basically the sports show how things are not the best in terms of competition level in the league, but I don't know. I'm not ready to buy that hype quite yet.
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think they're that good either, but boy, this season, when you talk about the quality of the teams where there's really no true standout, I mean, the Cowboys and Patriots, I think, are obviously a notch above everybody else, but I think we both agree they're beatable. And you look at the rest, you go, this is one of those years where you could get like a Ravens, Seahawks Super Bowl. It's just one of those, It's going to be one of those weird years. I hope not, but I wouldn't be too surprised.
In a game that neither of us are really sure even happened, because I don't think anyone should have been there to witness it, whether it happened or not. Bears 26, 49ers 6.
I will say that I can verify this game did in fact take place because I looked at it for my best and worst list for the uniforms. Looked fantastic. It was in the snow. What a beautiful game. And then I'm like, okay, just wanted to make sure it looked as good as I thought it did, and that was the last of it. But they were playing at that point, so I'm going to verify that it did take place.
The Raiders have to come from behind again, but they rally for a 15-point fourth quarter to knock off the Bills 38-24. Things have been a little too close, but the Raiders still winning.
But they just keep doing it. They keep pulling it off.
Like we said with the Cowboys, it's important that you just find your way to win sometimes. They're doing it.
I think these Raiders are just a whole lot of fun this year.
Definitely.
A fun team to watch.
A lot of fun. A huge game for both teams in terms of chasing wild card spots. The Giants lose one on the road to the Steelers 24-14. Giants are 8-4. They're still the first wild card in the NFC. But the Steelers, they're 7-5. They're tied with the Ravens. Ravens still have the tiebreaker. So maybe a bigger win for the Steelers to just keep pace in the AFC and not lose any ground because they can't afford any sort of slip right now with how things are going.
No, they're tied record-wise with the Ravens in the AFC North. They play the Ravens one more time, so this was a big win for the Steelers. They had to have it. Now they're on even footing record-wise, and they kind of put things into their own hands now with this to maybe try to take it the rest of the way and win the division and maybe knock the Ravens out of it and then don't have to worry about a Ravens Super Bowl.
Cardinals knock off the Redskins 31-23. Nice win for the Cardinals. A bad one to take if you're the Skins in facing wildcard spots. With that loss, they fall out because the Buccaneers beat the Chargers on the road in San Diego 28-21.
This Buccaneers team 5-1 on the road. Who would have guessed it?
Sunday Night Football, Seahawks 40, Panthers 7. These Seahawks, they just won't die.
Nope. The two primetime games, the last end of the week primetime games, I should say, not a whole lot of fun.
Yep. And the Panthers really dumb stuff going on with that team right now. With Cam Newton and the benching and the dress code, and
you always get a Super Bowl fall off, but geez, I mean, from 15-1 to 4-8.
And the Colts win on Monday night, 41-10. Colts are 6-6, Titans are 6-6, Texans are 6-6. The AFC South is a very dumb division, but that's it in the NFL. We'll talk to you next week.